The story opens in the year 2387, 50 years after humanity mysteriously vanished from the galaxy. The Galactic Coalition, a union of 12 alien species, had grown comfortable ruling the known systems. They had divided human space among themselves, stripping planets of resources and turning human colonies into mining operations. Admiral Kex of the bird-like Avian Republic monitored deep space from his flagship when sensors detected an impossible reading. A massive energy signature was approaching the edge of Coalition territory, something larger than any known vessel. The signal was faint, but growing stronger each day. Captain Vale, a reptilian officer from the Scaled Dominion, reported similar readings across multiple sectors. The energy pattern was unlike anything in their databases. It moved with purpose, following old human trade routes that had been abandoned for decades. Dr. Nix, the Coalition's chief scientist from the Crystalline Mineral Union, studied the data with growing concern. The signature matched theoretical designs from recovered human military files, designs for ships that should have been impossible to build. The humans had called them supercarriers, massive vessels capable of housing entire fleets. As days passed, the signal grew stronger. Long-range scanners finally captured visual confirmation. A colossal ship, dark and silent, drifting through space like a sleeping giant. It was 10 times larger than the Coalition's biggest dreadnought. Strange symbols covered its hull, human writing that few aliens could still read. The Coalition High Council gathered in emergency session. General Fox of the Insectoid Hive Collective argued for immediate military action. Commander Blue from the Aquatic Ocean Federation urged caution. They had all heard the legends of human warfare, stories dismissed as myths by younger generations. The ship continued its steady approach toward the Coalition's core worlds. It made no response to communication attempts. No signs of life registered on their scanners. Yet it moved with deliberate precision, following navigation patterns that suggested advanced artificial intelligence. Fear began to spread through Coalition ranks. Older officers remembered tales their predecessors told, stories of human ingenuity, their refusal to surrender, their terrifying ability to turn any situation into a weapon. The younger generation had laughed at such stories, but now they watched their sensors with growing dread. The Supercarrier passed through outer patrol zones without acknowledging the Coalition ships that shadowed it. Its massive bulk blocked out stars as it moved. Energy readings spiked whenever Coalition vessels got too close, forcing them to maintain a respectful distance. As the mysterious vessel entered the middle systems, civilian populations began to panic. Trade routes shut down. Merchant ships fled to safer sectors. The Coalition's careful order started to crack under the weight of the unknown. Admiral Kex received orders to assemble the largest fleet in Coalition history. Ships from all 12 member species converged on the Supercarrier's projected path. They would make their stand at the Nexus Station, the Coalition's most important hub. But as they prepared for battle, the Supercarrier did something unexpected. It slowed down. Energy signatures changed. For the first time in 50 years, human technology began to wake up. Deep within the ship's core, systems that had slumbered in the cold of space started to activate. The Coalition forces took defensive positions around Nexus Station. Thousands of ships formed battle lines, their weapons charged and ready. They expected the worst, a desperate last stand against humanity's greatest weapon. Instead, they received a transmission. It was weak at first, full of static and interference. Then it cleared, and a human voice spoke across the void, calm, measured, and absolutely confident. "This is Captain Reed of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiance. We have returned." Captain Reed's voice echoed through every Coalition command center, causing stunned silence across the fleet. The transmission was crystal clear now, broadcast on frequencies that only humans had ever used. After 50 years of silence, humanity had found its voice again. The Supercarrier Defiance came to a complete stop at the edge of the Nexus system. Its massive bulk dominated the view screens of Coalition ships. Up close, they could see the true scale of human engineering weapon ports that could house entire frigates, hangar bays large enough to launch hundreds of fighters simultaneously. Admiral Kex tried to maintain order among his diverse fleet. The Avian Republic ships fluttered nervously in formation. The scaled Dominion vessels held steady, but their crews were clearly shaken. Even the usually confident Hive Collective drones seemed uncertain about their next move. Captain Reed's image appeared on Coalition screens, a middle-aged human with graying hair and calm blue eyes. He wore a simple military uniform, unmarked by the elaborate decorations favored by Coalition officers. His presence radiated quiet authority that made alien commanders uncomfortable. 50 years ago, humanity left this galaxy, Reed began, his voice carrying easily across space. We did not flee. We did not surrender. We simply chose to step back and observe what would grow in our absence. General Fox of the Hive Collective interrupted with aggressive posturing. You are outnumbered 1,000 to 1, human. Surrender your vessel and submit to Coalition authority. Reed smiled expression that sent chills through alien observers who remembered human expressions. General Fox, your predecessor said something similar during the Battle of Kepler Station, before we destroyed his entire fleet with a single mining ship. The reference to ancient battles made older Coalition officers nervous. They remembered the reports, the impossible human victories against overwhelming odds. Stories their younger colleagues had dismissed as propaganda. Dr. Nix ran continuous scans of the Defiance, but the results made no sense. The ship's power signature was off the charts. Its hull showed damage from countless battles, yet it had been traveling through space for decades without any visible crew. Most disturbing were the energy patterns. They suggested technology far beyond current Coalition understanding. How many humans are aboard your vessel? Commander Blue asked, trying to sound professional while calculating attack vectors. Currently active crew, 1, Reed replied calmly. Total human population aboard, 0. The answer created confusion. Throughout the Coalition fleet, a single human controlling a supercarrier that could destroy their entire force? It seemed impossible, yet their sensors confirmed no other life signs. Reed continued his explanation with patient detail. When humanity left, we set certain contingencies in motion. The Defiance is one such contingency. An automated response to specific conditions in our former territory. What conditions? Admiral Kex demanded. The systematic destruction of human colonies, the enslavement of human populations left behind, the desecration of human memorial sites, the theft of human resources and technology. Reed's voice remained level, but something cold entered his eyes, all of which have occurred under Coalition rule. The accusations hit Coalition leaders like physical blows. They had indeed stripped human worlds bare, treating the abandoned colonies as free resources. What they thought was efficient recycling, humanity apparently viewed as grave robbery. Captain Vale of the Scaled Dominion tried to justify their actions. Those worlds were abandoned, empty. We brought order to chaos. You brought chains to freedom, Reed corrected. You turned memorial gardens into strip mines. You enslaved the humans who chose to remain behind. You wore our art as trophies and melted our monuments for scrap metal. Evidence began appearing on every Coalition screen, satellite footage of human worlds being systematically dismantled. Records of human slaves being traded between species. Images of Coalition officers wearing human artifacts as decorations. The documentation was thorough and damning. The Defiance has been collecting this evidence for 50 years, Reed explained, waiting for the right moment to present it to the galaxy. That moment has arrived. Systems throughout the Supercarrier began activating. Weapon ports that had remained dark suddenly blazed with energy. Fighter bays opened like hungry mouths. The ship's true military capacity became visible for the first time, and it was terrifying. "I am authorized to offer one opportunity for peaceful resolution," Reed announced. "The Coalition will immediately cease all operations in former human space. All enslaved humans will be released. All stolen human technology and artifacts will be returned. All occupied human worlds will be evacuated. And if we refuse?" General Fox challenged. Reed's smile returned, but now it carried the promise of destruction. "Then we demonstrate why humanity never truly left the galaxy. We simply stepped into the shadows to prepare." The Coalition High Council convened an emergency session aboard Nexus Station while their massive fleet maintained a tense standoff with the Defiance. Representatives from all 12 species argued loudly about the response to humanity's ultimatum. General Fox pounded his insectoid claws on the conference table. "One ship against our entire fleet. The human is clearly insane. We should attack immediately before he can call for reinforcements." "What reinforcements?" Dr. Nix asked quietly, studying data streams from long-range sensors. "According to our intelligence, humanity abandoned this galaxy completely. No trace of them has been found in 50 years. Commander Blue raised a tentacle thoughtfully. "Perhaps that is exactly what they wanted us to believe." Admiral Kex pulled up historical records on the main display. Images of human military actions from decades past filled the screen. Impossible victories. Devastating losses turned into strategic wins. Entire alien fleets destroyed by small human task forces using tactics no other species could replicate. "The humans were never like us," he said slowly. "They did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for ideas, for principles. They turned warfare into an art form." Captain Vale scoffed. "Ancient history. They are gone. This Reed is probably the last human in the galaxy, piloting a museum piece." As if summoned by their discussion, Reed's image appeared on their conference screen. "I can hear your debate, Coalition leaders. Your communications are not as secure as you believe." The admission sent security officers scrambling. How could a single ship penetrate their most protected networks? General Fox immediately accused Reed of bluffing, but the human began reciting private conversations from each species' home, worlds classified discussions that should have been impossible to intercept. "The Defiance has been listening for 50 years, Reed explained patiently. "We know your military capabilities, your political weaknesses, your personal fears. We know General Fox's secret deal with the mining cartel. We know Commander Blue's embezzlement of fleet resources. We know Admiral Kex's doubts about Coalition leadership." Each revelation hit like a physical blow. These aliens had spent decades building their reputations and power bases, only to discover that humanity had been watching and recording everything. Dr. Nix finally asked the question that terrified them all. "What do you want from us?" "Justice," Reed replied simply. 50 years ago, humanity made a choice. We could have fought you for control of the galaxy. Instead, we decided to see what kind of civilization you would build without us." Historical footage began playing on every screen throughout the Coalition fleet. Images of human worlds before the Exodus cities filled with art and music, spaceports buzzing with trade between species, research stations where humans and aliens worked together on scientific breakthroughs. "We built something beautiful," Reed said, his voice heavy with memory. "A society where different species could coexist and thrive. You inherited that legacy." The footage shifted to show the same worlds after Coalition occupation. Strip mines, where parks once flourished. Slave markets in former cultural centers. Military bases built on the ruins of universities and hospitals. You turned our gift into a weapon against the weak, Reed continued. You used our infrastructure to oppress the very species we had helped liberate. Admiral Kex felt shame burning in his chest. He remembered the early days after humanity's departure, when Coalition species had promised to maintain human values and protect smaller civilizations. Those promises had been forgotten as greed and ambition took control. It was not intentional, he said weakly. The Coalition evolved to meet new challenges. It evolved into everything humanity fought against, Reed corrected. Tyranny, oppression, the exploitation of the weak by the strong. General Fox tried to regain control of the situation. Enough philosophy. State your demands clearly, human. Reed's expression hardened. My demands were already clear. Release all enslaved humans. Return all stolen artifacts. Evacuate all human worlds. You have 24 hours to begin compliance. And if we refuse? Commander Blue asked. For the first time, Reed's calm facade cracked slightly. Then I activate the other contingencies. Other contingencies? Dr. Nix whispered. Did you really think the Defiance was the only ship humanity left behind? Reed asked. We are a patient species. We plan for every possibility. For 50 years, we have been preparing for this moment. Long-range sensors throughout Coalition space began detecting new contacts. Ships appearing at the edge of sensor range in every major system. Not approaching, not threatening, just watching. Waiting. How many ships? Admiral Kex asked. His voice barely a whisper. Reed smiled, but now his expression carried the weight of inevitable judgment. Enough. The Coalition leaders stared at their displays in growing horror. The contacts were not random. They were positioned at every strategic location in their territory. Supply lines, communication relays, military bases, civilian populations. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy. They had simply become invisible, preparing for this day of reckoning. 24 hours, Reed repeated. Choose wisely. Panic spread through Coalition space as reports flooded in from every sector. Human ships had appeared at critical points throughout their territory, not attacking, just watching with ominous patience. The vessels were clearly ancient, but functional. Their energy signatures matching technologies that predated the Tissid Coalition by centuries. Admiral Kex stood in the command center of Nexus Station, watching the tactical display with growing dread. Red dots marked confirmed human contacts. Mining stations, trade routes, military bases, even civilian colonies. Each dot represented a potential target, and there were thousands of them. Status report, he ordered, trying to maintain some semblance. Of Control Dot Captain Vale pulled up fleet communications. 17 sectors reporting human contacts. Ships range from small destroyers to cruiser-class vessels. No aggressive actions, but they are clearly taking strategic positions. Dr. Nix studied the positioning patterns with scientific precision. Their deployment is perfect. They have isolated our major population centers and cut off primary supply lines. If they attack simultaneously, our response capability would be severely limited. The implications were staggering. For 50 years, the Coalition had believed they controlled former human space completely. Now they discovered that humanity had never truly left. They had simply hidden in the shadows, watching and waiting. General Fox refused to accept the reality of their situation. These are ghost ships, ancient hulks with skeleton crews. We outnumber them 100 to 1. Numbers mean nothing if they control strategic positions, Commander Blue observed. They could strangle our economy without firing a shot. Reed's image appeared on their screens again, his calm demeanor unchanged despite the chaos he had unleashed. Coalition leaders, You have 16 hours remaining to begin compliance with our demands. Your demands are impossible, General Fox shouted. We cannot evacuate entire worlds in such a short time. The logistics alone would take months. You had 50 years to avoid this situation, Reed replied coldly. You chose to spend that time exploiting rather than preparing. Admiral Keck stepped forward, hoping diplomacy could still salvage something from this disaster. Captain Reed, surely we can negotiate reasonable terms. The Coalition is willing to discuss reparations and reforms. A time for negotiation was 50 years ago, Reed said firmly, when humanity left detailed instructions for the care of our worlds and our people. Instructions you chose to ignore. Historical documents appeared on their screens, formal agreements signed between humanity and early Coalition members. Treaties promising protection for human colonies, preservation of human cultural sites, and fair treatment of humans who chose to remain behind. Every single agreement had been violated within a decade of humanity's departure. Dr. Nix read through the documents with growing shame. These terms were more than reasonable. We promised to maintain human infrastructure and protect human populations. Instead, you turned our cities into strip mines and our people into slaves, Reed stated with quiet fury. You sold human artifacts as curiosities and demolished our monuments for building materials. Evidence continued streaming across Coalition networks, footage of human slaves being auctioned, images of Coalition officers wearing human ceremonial items as fashion statements, records of human libraries being burned for fuel. The systematic destruction of human civilization had been thorough and deliberate. Captain Vale tried a different approach. Even if we accept your demands, how do we know you will honor any agreement? You could destroy us anyway. Reed's expression softened slightly. Because despite everything you have done, we are still human. We believe in justice, not revenge. We want to build, not destroy. Then why the show of force? Commander Blue asked. Because you only understand strength, Reed answered. 50 years of observation taught us that the Coalition respects only power. Diplomacy without the threat of consequences is meaningless to your species. Admiral Kex felt the weight of truth in those words. The Coalition had indeed grown arrogant and aggressive over the decades, using military might to solve every dispute. They had forgotten the cooperative spirit that humanity had tried to foster. What happens if we comply? He asked quietly. Humanity returns to this galaxy, Reed said simply. Not as conquerors, but as partners. We rebuild what was destroyed. We free those who were enslaved. We restore what was stolen. And if we refuse? Reed's smile disappeared completely. Then, we demonstrate why our ancestors were feared throughout the galaxy. You have studied our military history. You know what humans are capable of when pushed too far. The Coalition leaders exchanged worried glances. They had indeed studied human warfare, dismissing it as primitive brutality. Now they realized their mistake. Human military doctrine was not primitive. It was terrifyingly efficient. 15 hours, Reed announced, his image fading from their screens. Make your choice. Throughout Coalition space, a hidden human fleet maintained their positions, silent guardians waiting for orders that could reshape the galaxy. The age of Coalition dominance was ending, and the universe held its breath to see what would rise from its ashes. Asterisk, with only 4 hours remaining until Reed's deadline, the Coalition High Council made their fateful decision. The evidence of their crimes was overwhelming, their strategic position hopeless, and their moral standing shattered. Admiral Kex cast the deciding vote to accept humanity's demands. We surrender, he announced over open channels, his voice heavy with defeat and shame. The Coalition agrees to all terms. We will begin immediate evacuation of human worlds and release of human populations. Reed's image appeared one final time, but now his expression showed neither triumph nor satisfaction, only quiet sadness. For what had been lost, your compliance is acknowledged. Human vessels will monitor the process to ensure agreements are honored. Across coalition space, the evacuation began immediately. Massive cargo ships loaded with stolen human artifacts prepared for departure. Mining operations shut down. Slave markets closed forever. The systematic dismantling of 50 years of exploitation would take time, but it had begun. On the former human world of Haven, coalition forces opened the gates of labor camps for the first time in decades. Humans emerged blinking into sunlight. They had not seen for years, many of them elderly survivors who remembered life before the occupation. They wept as they saw human ships descending from orbit to take them home. Dr. Nix supervised the return of human artifacts from the coalitions. Central Museum. Statues, paintings, musical instruments, and books, all carefully preserved despite their theft. As he watched human representatives catalog each item, he felt genuine remorse for his species' actions. Why did we do this? He asked Reed during one of their coordination meetings. We had everything we needed. Why did we take yours as well? Reed considered the question carefully. Because taking is easier than building. Because power corrupts even good intentions. Because you forgot that civilizations are measured not by what they own, but by how they treat others. The Defiance remained at Nexus Station throughout the transition, a massive reminder of humanity's return. But as days passed, other human ships began arriving, not the ancient vessels that had hidden for 50 years, but new construction from wherever humanity had spent their exile. These ships were different from anything the galaxy had seen before. Their designs incorporated lessons learned from decades of observation, combining the best of human engineering with innovations developed in isolation. They were beautiful and functional, carrying the promise of better things to come. Captain Vale watched the new arrivals with professional interest. Where did humanity go for 50 years? How did they build such advanced vessels? Reed smiled, and for the first time it carried warmth instead of warning. We found empty systems beyond the galactic rim, built new worlds from nothing, learned to be better than we were before. Will you share this knowledge with us? Admiral Kex asked hopefully. In time, Reed replied, when trust is rebuilt, when justice is restored, when the galaxy proves it deserves a second chance. The evacuation process took 6 months to complete. Human worlds were returned to their natural state as much as possible. Enslaved populations were reunited with families they had not seen for decades. Stolen cultural treasures found their way back to proper museums and libraries. Most surprising to coalition observers was humanity's restraint. Despite their overwhelming military advantage, humans showed mercy to former oppressors. Coalition species were allowed to keep their core territories. Trade agreements were negotiated fairly. Former enemies were treated as potential partners rather than conquered subjects. General Fox, who had argued most strongly for resistance, found himself assigned to work with human agricultural specialists in restoring damaged farming worlds. To his amazement, they treated him with professional courtesy despite his previous hostility. Why do you not hate us? He asked during one planning session. We destroyed everything you built. The human engineer, a woman named Dr. Ross, paused. In her work, hate is a luxury we cannot afford. The galaxy needs healing, not more wounds. As the first year of humanity's return progressed, changes became visible throughout coalition space. Trade flourished as humans re-established economic networks. Scientific research advanced rapidly through renewed cooperation. Art and culture experienced a renaissance as different species shared their creativity openly. The Defiance finally left Nexus Station, but not to disappear again. Instead, it became the flagship of a new organization, the Galactic Restoration Council, where humans and aliens worked together to repair the damage of the past 50 years. Reed remained as the ship's captain, but now his role was diplomat rather than warrior. In his final message to the galaxy, he spoke words that would be remembered for generations. Humanity returns not as your masters, but as your partners. Together, we will build something greater than either of us could achieve alone. The stars belong to all of us. And in the vast darkness of space, hope began to shine again. The end